Millionaire leaves work early and can't believe what he saw. Richard Thompson never imagined that a simple decision to leave the office early would change his life forever. The successful 52-year-old businessman had built an empire in the construction industry in New York City, but his rigid work routine kept him away from home until 9 o'clock every night. That Thursday afternoon, he decided to leave at 4 to take care of some personal matters when he spotted a scene that made him stop completely. In the side garden of his mansion in Scarsdale, his housekeeper Dorothy was kneeling on the ground, gently cleaning the feet of a blonde boy holding blue crutches. "There you go, my love. Now your little feet are all clean," she said with maternal affection. The boy, who seemed to be about 4 years old, smiled and hugged her neck. "Thank you, Grandma Dottie." Richard felt his heart race. That little face, those light eyes, the shape of the nose. It was like looking at a photo of his son Michael as a child. Dorothy lifted her head and paled when she saw him standing there, watching. The plate she held in her hands visibly trembled. "Mr. Richard, I can explain. Who is this boy?" The businessman's voice came out harsher than he intended. The little one hid behind Dorothy's legs, frightened by the serious tone of the man in the suit. He's just a neighborhood child that I help sometimes. It's nothing serious." "From the neighborhood?" Richard approached slowly. "Dorothy, how many years have you worked for me?" 15 years, sir." "And in all these years, have I ever seen any neighborhood children here on my property?" The woman's silence was more revealing than any confession. She hugged the boy protectively. "What does he call you?" "Sir?" "He called you Grandma. Neighborhood children don't call housekeepers Grandma, Dorothy." Tears began to roll down the 58-year-old woman's face. "Mister, why are you fighting with Grandma?" the boy asked innocently, stepping out from behind Dorothy. "She takes care of me when my aunt goes to work." Richard knelt to be at the child's eye level. "Where does your aunt work, little one?" "In the big house," the boy pointed to the mansion. "She cleans everything and makes yummy food. But I stay in the little back room because I can't bother the important man." Richard's world collapsed in that instant. He looked at Dorothy, who was crying silently. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "Dorothy, I want the truth. Now." The housekeeper wiped her tears with her apron and took a deep breath. "Mr. Richard, this boy, he is Ethan. He's your grandson." The words hit Richard like a punch to the stomach. He stood up unsteadily. "What did you say?" "He's Michael's son, sir, your son's." Richard had to lean on the garden bench to keep from falling. Michael, his only son, whom he had thrown out of the house 5 years earlier for falling in love with a girl from a humble family. The stubborn young man who chose to move to the countryside rather than accept his father's demands about who he should date. Where is Michael?" Dorothy closed her eyes, and new tears streamed down. "Sir, Michael and Jennifer. They passed away 6 months ago." "Went where?" "To heaven, sir. They had an accident on the road when they were coming home from work." Richard fell back onto the bench. Little Ethan approached and touched his leg. "Mister, why are you sad?" "Grandma Dottie said that when people go to heaven, they're happy up there." The businessman looked at that innocent little face, at those eyes that were identical to Michael's at the same age. His grandson, his only grandson, living hidden on his own property. "Dorothy, explain everything to me from the beginning." The woman sat on the grass next to Ethan, who was playing with the crutches as if they were swords. "After Michael left home, I always kept in touch with him. You didn't know, sir, but he would call me from time to time to ask about your health. He never stopped loving you, you know." Richard swallowed hard. "He married Jennifer 3 years ago. They moved to Rochester, where he got a job at a small construction company. When Ethan was born, they sent me pictures. I could see he looked just like Michael when he was little." "And how did he end up here?" 8 months ago, Jennifer got sick, severe pneumonia. They had to spend all their savings on her treatment. They couldn't afford daycare for Ethan, so they took him to a temporary shelter here in New York City, near Jennifer's aunt's house. What aunt? Actually, she wasn't a blood relative. She was a lady who helped the family when they were young, but she also got sick and couldn't take care of the boy. Ethan had stopped playing and was listening carefully, as if he already knew the story by heart. When Michael called me, desperate, asking if I knew anyone in New York City who could take care of Ethan for a few months, I didn't hesitate. I went to the shelter, saw the boy, and my heart almost stopped. He was you in miniature. Richard looked at the son he had never known. Ethan had the same blonde curls he had in childhood before his hair darkened with age. I brought him here in secret. I fixed up the little back room, bought a few things to make him comfortable. I thought it would be temporary until his parents got back on their feet. And the crutches? Ethan was born with a minor spine problem. Nothing too serious, but he needs physical therapy and some devices to help him walk. I use my salary to pay for his treatment. Richard felt like the worst man in the world. While he lived in luxury, his grandson needed medical treatment and his parents were struggling to survive. How did the accident happen? They were coming back from Ethan's physical therapy in Rochester. It was nighttime, raining. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. The businessman covered his face with his hands. If he hadn't thrown his son out, maybe he would still be alive. Maybe they would all be together as a family. Grandpa, why didn't you want to meet Ethan? The child's innocent question cut like a knife. Grandma Dottie said you're my grandpa, but that you don't like boys with crutches. Ethan, that's not it. Dorothy tried to correct, but Richard interrupted her. No, Dorothy, let him ask. Richard knelt again before his grandson. Ethan, Grandpa didn't know you existed. If I had known, I would have taken care of you from the very beginning. Really? Then why did my dad never bring me here? The simple question of a 4-year-old exposed all the cruelty Richard had committed years ago. How to explain to a boy that his grandfather had thrown his father out because of prejudice? Your father and I, we had a fight, a nasty adult fight. And when adults fight that badly, sometimes it takes them a long time to make up. But now you can't make up anymore, can you? Richard felt tears burning his eyes. No, Ethan, we can't. The boy dropped the crutches and with difficulty walked the few steps to Richard. He hugged his grandfather's neck tightly. Don't cry, Grandpa. Daddy and Mommy said that when we're truly sorry, the people in heaven forgive us. Richard hugged his grandson as if his life depended on it. Dorothy cried silently, watching the scene she had dreamed of for months. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He walked around the empty mansion, thinking about the simple little room in the back where his grandson had been sleeping for 8 months. The next day, he called Dorothy for a serious talk. I want to know everything about Ethan. I want to know about your routine, your likes, your fears. I want to be part of his life. Sir, Ethan is terrified of men in suits. It reminds him of his father, who always came home tired from work in formal wear. Maybe if you wore simpler clothes. Richard looked at his closet full of very expensive suits. For the first time in decades, he put on a pair of jeans and a polo shirt. When Ethan saw him like that, he smiled. Now you look like a real grandpa. The first meetings were difficult. Ethan was affectionate but shy. Dorothy served as a bridge between them, explaining to the boy that his grandpa wanted to play and talk. Grandpa, do you know how to play soccer? Not very well, Ethan, but I can learn. But I can't run much because of my legs. Will you be patient? All the patience in the world. Richard bought a small ball, and they started playing in the garden. Ethan was determined, even with his limitations. The businessman was impressed by his grandson's willpower. During one of these games, Ethan fell and hurt his knee. Dorothy came running, but Richard had already picked the boy up in his arms. It hurts, Grandpa. I know, champ. Let's take care of it. For the first time, Richard put a bandage on his grandson, listening to his dramatic complaints about the medicine stinging. My dad also took care of me like this when I got hurt, Ethan commented. You're just like him. Richard was moved. Being compared to the son he had rejected was both painful and comforting. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like, and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Weeks passed and Richard began to understand his grandson's routine. Ethan had physical therapy 3 times a week with a therapist who came to the house. The boy was brave during the exercises, but always asked for Grandma Dottie's hand to feel safe. "The doctor said maybe I can walk without crutches when I grow up," Ethan said proudly, "but I need to exercise every day." Richard hired the best specialists in New York City. He wanted to give his grandson everything money could buy, but Dorothy warned him, "Mr. Richard, be careful not to scare the boy. He's used to simplicity. Let's take it slow." The businessman had to learn to pace himself. Ethan was impressed with expensive gifts, but it was the small gestures that truly connected them. A bedtime story was worth more than any electronic toy. One night, Ethan asked about his father. "Grandpa, do you have pictures of my dad when he was little like me?" Richard went to his office and brought back a dusty album. He hadn't looked at those photos in years. Ethan was fascinated to see the resemblance. "Look, Grandpa, he looks just like me." "Yes, he does, Ethan. You're the spitting image of your father." "Did he like to play too?" "He loved to, especially airplanes. He said one day he would fly all over the world." "I like airplanes too. Grandma Dottie makes paper airplanes for me." Richard spent the afternoon making paper airplanes with his grandson. It was a skill he had completely forgotten, but it came back naturally as they played in the garden. Ethan talked about his parents with an impressive naturalness for a child. "Mommy got sick and went to the hospital many times. Daddy was sad, but he always said everything would be okay. They were very much in love, you know." "How do you know that?" "Because they kissed all the time," Ethan laughed. "And Daddy always brought flowers for Mommy even when he didn't have money to buy things to eat." Richard imagined the son he had raised to be pragmatic and money-focused, becoming a romantic man. Apparently, Michael had found in Jennifer the true love his father never knew how to value. "Do you want to learn more about your dad? I can show you his childhood room." Ethan perked up. Richard took him to the upper floor of the mansion, where Michael's room had remained untouched for 5 years. "Wow, what a big room." Ethan was impressed. "Daddy had all this?" "Yes, he did. And you can have it too if you want." "Can I bring Grandma Dottie to sleep here with me? I have nightmares sometimes." Richard realized his greatest achievement would be earning his grandson's complete trust. Ethan saw Dorothy as a maternal figure. Any drastic change could further traumatize the child. "Of course. Grandma Dottie can stay wherever you want." Dorothy was moved to learn she would have her own room in the mansion. She, who had slept in the maid's small room for 15 years, suddenly found herself treated like family. "Mr. Richard, I don't know how to thank you." "Dorothy, I'm the one who should be thanking you. You saved my grandson when I didn't even know he existed. You cared for him with your own money, gave him love when he needed it most. There's no way to repay that." The transition happened gradually. Ethan kept some toys in the simple back room and some in his new room. He said they were his 2 houses. Richard began altering his work routine. He left earlier to be with Ethan during his physical therapy sessions. The boy was overjoyed to see his grandfather following his progress. "Grandpa, look, I managed to stand by myself for 10 seconds. You're a champion, Ethan." The physical therapist, Amanda, was impressed with the boy's progress. "Mr. Richard, Ethan is improving very rapidly. The love and stability he's gained are reflecting in his treatment. Children heal more easily when they feel safe and loved." Richard realized he was learning about parenthood late in life through the experience of being a grandfather. All the lessons he hadn't applied with Michael, he now tried to apply with Ethan. One day, Ethan surprised everyone by walking a few steps without his crutches. "Grandpa, Grandma Dottie, look." Richard and Dorothy ran to see. Ethan was standing in the middle of the room, smiling proudly. "I did it. The physical therapist said if I practiced every day, I could do it." Richard ran and hugged his grandson, lifting him in the air. "My champion, you're the bravest boy in the world." Ethan laughed loudly, a sound that echoed through the mansion and warmed his grandfather's heart in a way no business success ever had. That night, Richard called his lawyer to formalize Ethan's legal status. He wanted to ensure the boy had all the rights as his grandson and heir. "Dr. Wilson, I want you to prepare all the necessary documentation. Ethan is my legitimate grandson and should be legally recognized as such." "Of course, Richard. I'll need some documents from the child's parents." Dorothy has everything stored. She handled all the legal details when she took over Ethan's care. Dorothy had been more foresighted than Richard imagined. She had kept certificates, medical documents, even letters that Michael had written to her over the years. "Sir, Michael wrote to me from time to time. He talked about Ethan, about his life, about how much he missed you." "He wrote about me?" "Yes, he did. He always said he hoped to reconcile one day, that he wanted you to meet Ethan." Richard asked to read the letters. There were few, but every word was a dagger in his heart. "Dorothy, I hope everything is all right there. Ethan is growing up, and every day he looks more like my father when he was a child. Jennifer always says he has the same stubborn streak. Sometimes I look at him and feel an immense longing for home. Will my father ever want to meet his grandson? Is there any chance of forgiveness? Sometimes I dream of taking Ethan to see the house where I grew up, showing him my old bedroom, telling him stories about his grandfather. But I know it's not the time yet. Maybe someday." The letter was dated just 2 months before the accident. Michael still had hope for reconciliation when he left. Richard cried alone in his office that night, the pain of loss mixed with the relief of having found Ethan. It was as if his son had left a part of himself for his father to care for. Ethan started attending a special school for children with special needs. Richard made sure to take him personally on the first day. "I'm nervous, Grandpa." "It's normal to be nervous, champ, but you'll make lots of new friends. What if they laugh at my crutches? If they laugh, you tell them how brave you are. Tell them you're learning to walk without them." Ethan settled in well at school. Dorothy would pick him up every day and always had stories to tell about the boys' school adventures. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. One day Ethan came home from school with a special assignment. "Grandpa, my teacher asked me to make a family tree. Can you help me?" Richard sat with his grandson at the kitchen table. He explained each family member, showing photos, telling stories. When he got to Ethan's parents, the boy grew thoughtful. "Grandpa, do you miss my daddy?" "Very much, Ethan." "Me too. But Grandma Dottie said when we miss someone, it's because we keep love in our heart. And love never ends, right?" Richard hugged his grandson, moved by the little child's wisdom. "That's exactly right, champ. Love never ends." Months passed, and Ethan grew stronger. He walked long distances without crutches, though he still used them sometimes for safety. Richard decided to plan a special surprise. He completely renovated the house's garden, creating a play area adapted for Ethan. Special seesaw, swings with extra support, a small court with rubber flooring. "Grandpa, what a wonderful place." Ethan was thrilled. "Is it all for me?" "It's all yours, champ. Now you can play here whenever you want." Ethan ran to try every piece of equipment. Dorothy watched with emotion, seeing the child finally having the childhood he deserved. That afternoon, neighbors began to appear. The transformation at Richard's house had drawn attention. The always serious and distant businessman was now playing in the garden with a child. Richard, Mrs. Barbara, his neighbor of 10 years, approached curiously. "I didn't know you had a grandson." "It's a long story, Barbara. This is Ethan, my son Michael's boy. What a beautiful child, and so polite." "Hello, Ethan." "Hi, Auntie." Ethan waved excitedly. "Want to play with me? My grandpa made all this for me." Mrs. Barbara was charmed by the boy's friendliness. Soon, other children from the neighborhood were playing in Richard's garden. "Grandpa, now our house is the most fun in the neighborhood." Ethan celebrated. Richard realized Ethan had transformed not only his life, but the entire dynamic of the house. The mansion that was once silent and cold was now full of life and laughter. One afternoon, while Ethan played with his new friends, Richard had an important conversation with Dorothy. "Dorothy, I need to ask you something." "Of course, sir." "Stop calling me sir. We're family now. Call me Richard." Dorothy smiled, still not used to such informality after 15 years. "And another thing, I want to formalize your situation here, not as an employee, but as part of the family. I want you to have security, health insurance, guaranteed retirement. Sir, Richard, I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept. Ethan needs you, and I've also learned to need you. You saved us, Dorothy. Saved my family. Dorothy cried with emotion. At 58 years old, she finally had the security she had always dreamed of. Richard also began making changes at his company. He created a support program for employees with special needs children, offering expanded health plans and flexible schedules for treatments. Mr. Richard, said Susan, his secretary of 10 years, may I make an observation? Of course, Susan. You're different, more human. The employees are talking about it. Different how? More patient, more understanding. Yesterday you gave Robert time off to take his son to the doctor. Before, that would have been unthinkable. Richard smiled. Ethan was changing not only his personal life, but his way of seeing the world and people. At home, Ethan continued to progress. His independence grew each day, but he maintained his special closeness with Dorothy. "Grandma Dottie, you'll never leave me, right?" he asked one night before bed. "Never, my love. As long as I live, I'll take care of you." "What if you get too old to take care of me?" "Then you'll take care of me," Dorothy laughed. "That's what real families do." Ethan became thoughtful. "So we're a real family. You, me, and Grandpa." "Yes, Ethan. The realest family there is." Richard, who was listening from the hallway, was moved. That was the most perfect definition of family he had ever heard. The months passed, and Ethan's 5th birthday arrived. Richard wanted to throw a special party, but Ethan had a specific request. "Grandpa, I want to have the party here in the garden and invite all the kids from the neighborhood. And I want Grandma Dottie's cake, not from the expensive bakery." "But Ethan, I can hire the best." "No, Grandpa, I want simplicity. That's how I like it." Richard realized he had been trying to compensate for the absence of Ethan's parents with luxury, but the boy valued life's simple things. The party was a success. The garden was full of children, parents, neighbors. Richard played with everyone, organized games, handed out candy. "Richard," commented his elderly neighbor, George, "I never imagined seeing you like this. Playing, smiling, being normal." "Normal?" "Yes, human. Before you were just the successful, distant businessman. Now you're a grandfather who's crazy about his grandson." Richard looked at Ethan, who was playing happily with his friends, not caring about his physical limitations. The boy had taught him more about life in a few months than he had learned in 50 years. When it was time to blow out the candles, Ethan made his wish out loud. "I want my mommy and daddy, wherever they are, to know that I'm very happy with my grandpa and my grandma Dottie. And I want our family to keep growing bigger and bigger." All the adults were moved. The purity of that child touched the heart of every person there. That night, after everyone had left, Ethan was too excited to sleep. "Grandpa, that was the best party of my life." "Really? Better than the ones your parents threw?" Ethan became thoughtful. "Mom and Dad always had small parties, just the 3 of us. But they were so happy. Today I felt the same happiness, you know, like they were here with us." Richard hugged his grandson, understanding he had received the greatest blessing possible. Ethan felt complete, despite all the losses he had suffered. In the following months, a special routine was established in the house. Richard left work at 5 to be with Ethan for dinner. Dorothy cooked dishes the boy loved. They watched cartoons together, did homework, played in the garden. Richard had never experienced parenthood so intensely. With Michael, he was always working, leaving the raising to nannies and expensive schools. Now every achievement of Ethan's was celebrated. Every difficulty was faced together. "Grandpa," Ethan asked one day, "why did you and my dad fight?" Richard knew this question would come. He had thought a lot about how to answer. "Ethan, your father fell in love with your mother, and I thought she wasn't good enough for him. I was wrong." "Why did you think that?" "Because I was prejudiced. I thought only rich people could be part of our family. But was Jennifer nice?" "From what Dorothy tells me, your mother was a wonderful person, hardworking, caring. She loved you very much. So you were really wrong." "Very wrong, Ethan. And because of my mistake, I lost 5 years with your father. I couldn't meet your mother, or you as a baby." Ethan was thoughtful for a few minutes. "Grandpa, did you regret it?" "I regret it every day. Daddy once said that when we truly regret and try to make things right, God forgives us. Do you think he has forgiven me?" "I think so. If he hadn't forgiven you, he wouldn't have let me stay here with you." The wisdom of that 5-year-old child constantly impressed Richard. Ethan could simplify complex issues in a way that brought peace to the heart. One day, Ethan came home from school with news. "Grandpa," the teacher said, "I can participate in the Mother's Day presentation. I'm going to sing a song for Grandma Dottie." Dorothy was moved. In all her years of life, she had never been honored on Mother's Day. "Ethan, my love, I'm not your real mother, but you take care of me as if you were." And that's what a mother's love is, right? Taking care with affection. Richard watched the presentation at school and was moved to see Ethan singing to Dorothy as if she were his biological mother. The woman cried with joy, finally being recognized for the love she had always dedicated to that boy. After the presentation, Richard had a conversation with the school principal. "Your grandson is a special child, Mr. Richard, not only because of his physical disability, but because of his emotional maturity. He has a wisdom that impresses us all. He has been through a lot for such a young child." "That's true. But you are giving him exactly what he needs: unconditional love and stability." Richard was proud to be providing this for Ethan, but he knew the greater credit was Dorothy's, who had been the first to see that child's potential. Ethan's physical progress continued to be impressive. He was already walking long distances without support and participating in all school activities. "Amanda," Richard asked the physical therapist, "what is the prognosis for Ethan?" "Mr. Richard, with the treatment he is receiving and the family's dedication, I believe he will have a completely normal life. He may always have a small limitation, but nothing that prevents any activity he wants to do." Richard smiled. His grandson would have all the opportunities in the world. One afternoon, Ethan asked a question that caught Richard off guard. "Grandpa, when I grow up, will I work in your company?" "If you want to, Ethan. But you can choose any profession you like." "I want to be like my dad. Build houses for people to live in." Richard was moved. Michael had followed the same professional path as his father, even while being distant. "Then let's do this. When you're older, you can learn from me. But first you need to study hard. Graduate. I promise I will study. And when I go to work with you, can I bring Grandma Dottie to make coffee for everyone?" Richard laughed out loud. Ethan always included Dorothy in all his future plans. "Of course you can, champ." The years passed, and Ethan became an intelligent, charismatic, and determined 8-year-old boy. His disability had become almost unnoticeable. He ran, played, and studied like any other child his age. Richard had completely transformed. The serious workaholic businessman had given way to a present and affectionate grandfather. His company remained prosperous, but now he knew how to balance work and family. Dorothy, now 61 years old, was officially retired, but continued to care for the family out of love. Ethan treated her like a real grandmother, and Richard respected her as a fundamental member of the family. One day, Ethan found an old box in the attic of the house. Inside were letters that Michael had written to Richard over the years, but which the businessman had never read. There were birthday letters, Father's Day letters, Christmas letters, all returned unopened. "Grandpa, why didn't you read Daddy's letters?" Richard was speechless. He hadn't realized that Michael had continued trying to make contact even after being thrown out of the house. They read the letters together. In each one, Michael expressed love, longing, and a desire for reconciliation. In the last one, written just a few months before the accident, he wrote about Ethan. "Dad, I know you may never read this letter, but I need to try one more time. I have a son now. His name is Ethan, and he's the most beautiful thing in the world. He has your eyes, Dad, and your stubbornness too. Every day I think about how good it would be if you could meet him. Jennifer always says he should have a grandfather. I agree. If you ever change your mind, we'll be here. I love you. I've always loved you, even when you didn't want my love. Your son, Michael." Richard cried as he hadn't cried in decades. Ethan hugged his grandfather. Grandpa, Daddy loved you very much. He wasn't mad at you. How do you know? Because real love doesn't stay mad forever. It gets sad, but not mad. Richard realized that Ethan had inherited not only his father's physical traits, but also his generous heart and his capacity to forgive. That night, Richard made an important decision. He called Ethan and Dorothy for a talk. I need to tell you something. I'm going to sell part of the company. Why, Grandpa? Because I want to spend more time with you, Ethan. I want to be present for every moment of your life. I already missed many important moments with your father. I won't miss them with you. Dorothy was moved to see how Richard had changed his priorities. And besides, Richard continued, I want to create a foundation in your father and mother's name to help other families going through difficulties like they did. What kind of help, Grandpa? Medical treatment for special needs children, support for parents who need to work and don't have anywhere to leave their children, things like that. Ethan beamed. Daddy and Mommy would be so happy about this. Richard put the plans into action. The Michael and Jennifer Foundation started small, but quickly grew. Richard used his business experience to create an efficient organization that truly helped people in need. Ethan actively participated in the foundation's activities, visiting other special needs children, playing with them, showing that it was possible to overcome limitations. Grandpa, he said after a visit to a children's hospital, it's cool to help other people, right? Very cool, Ethan. Your father would be proud. I think he is proud, and my mommy too. Richard had found not only his grandson, but also a greater purpose for his life. The money he once used only to accumulate more wealth now served to make a difference in the lives of other families. Ethan grew up to become an exceptional young man, intelligent, empathetic, determined. By 16, he already showed an aptitude for architecture and engineering, wanting to follow in his father and grandfather's footsteps. Grandpa, I want to study architecture in college, but I want to focus on social projects, affordable housing, things like that. Richard smiled. Ethan had found a perfect middle ground between his grandfather's corporate world and the social conscience he had inherited from his parents. You have my full support, Ethan. In fact, I have a proposal for you. What is it? How about we expand the foundation, create an affordable housing division, with you leading it once you graduate? Ethan hugged his grandfather, excited about the possibility. That would be perfect, Grandpa. Dad always dreamed of building houses for poor people. It would be like fulfilling his dream. Dorothy, now with completely white hair but still active, watched the conversation with maternal pride. My boys, she said, you make me so happy. Grandma Dottie, Ethan hugged her, you made all this possible. If you hadn't brought me here, Grandpa and I would never have met. Richard completely agreed. Dorothy had been the family's angel, uniting 3 generations through unconditional love. Years passed and Ethan graduated as an architect with highest honors. His final project was an innovative housing complex for low-income families, including adaptations for people with disabilities. Ethan, said his advisor, this is one of the best projects I've ever seen. You have a bright future ahead of you. Thank you, Professor. But my goal isn't to be famous. It's to make a difference. Richard watched the graduation with tears in his eyes. He was seeing his grandson become exactly the man Michael would have wanted him to be. In his graduation speech, Ethan surprised everyone. I want to dedicate this achievement to my parents, Michael and Jennifer, who taught me about love and determination even though they had little time with me. To my grandfather, Richard, who showed me it's never too late to start over. And to my grandmother in spirit, Dorothy, who saved me when I needed it most and loved me like a son. The audience was moved. Richard felt that this was the final reconciliation with Michael. Through Ethan, his son had come home. After graduation, Ethan took over the leadership of the Foundation's housing division. In no time, he was developing innovative projects that gained national attention. Grandpa, he said one day, we received an invitation to present our work in Washington, D.C. The government wants to adopt our ideas on a national scale. Richard was proud of his grandson, but he knew the real credit belonged to Ethan, who had turned pain into purpose. Dorothy, now 70 years old, was still the family matriarch. Ethan continued to live in the mansion, now in a wing that Richard had built to give his adult grandson privacy. "Grandma Dottie," Ethan joked, "when I get married, will you come live with me and my wife?" "Only if she doesn't mind a stubborn old lady," Dorothy laughed. "Any woman I marry will have to love you too. It's a mandatory condition." Richard watched these interactions with deep contentment. He had created not just a family, but a legacy of love. One Sunday afternoon, the three of them were in the garden where it had all begun. Ethan, now a successful 25-year-old man, was playing with the neighbor's children, just as he had done as a boy. "Richard," Dorothy commented, "do you remember how it all started here?" "How could I forget? The day I left work early and saw you taking care of that special boy. Did you ever imagine it would come to this?" Richard looked at Ethan, who was teaching the children how to make paper airplanes, just as he had taught him years ago. "I never imagined it, Dorothy. I thought I had lost everything when I threw Michael out of the house. But Ethan brought back not just a grandson to me, but my son too. Through him, I came to know who Michael really became." "And you? Do you feel fulfilled?" Richard thought about the question. He had money, success, social recognition. But none of that compared to the feeling of hugging Ethan every night and hearing, "Good night, Grandpa." "More than fulfilled, Dorothy. I feel complete." Ethan approached them, breathless from playing so much. "Grandpa, Grandma Dottie, do you want to know something?" "What is it, sweetheart?" Dorothy asked. "I dreamed about my parents last night. They were smiling, saying they're proud of our family. Dad said you did everything right, Grandpa, and Mom sent a kiss to Grandma Dottie." Richard and Dorothy looked at each other, moved. It didn't matter if it was just a dream or something more. What mattered was that Ethan felt at peace, loved, and complete. "Ethan," Richard said, "you know you saved my life, right?" "How so, Grandpa?" "When I found you, I was empty inside. Rich, successful, but empty. You taught me what really matters in life." "It was Grandma Dottie who saved me first. She was the one who had the courage to bring me here when no one else could take care of me." Dorothy wiped her eyes with her apron, as she had done for so many years. "You two saved me. You gave me a real family when I thought it was too late for that." Ethan hugged them both at the same time. "Then we all saved each other. That's what families do, right? They save each other." The sun was setting in the garden where it all began. Richard looked at that space that had transformed from a simple backyard into the setting for the most important moments of his life. There he had discovered his grandson. There Ethan had taken his first steps without crutches. There they had built a family that transcended blood ties. "Grandpa," Ethan interrupted his thoughts, "tomorrow I'm presenting the project for the new housing development. Will you come with me?" "Of course I will, Ethan. I'll always be by your side." "And you, Grandma Dottie, if you want this old lady around, we'll always want you," Richard and Ethan said at the same time, making everyone laugh. As they walked back to the house, Richard thought about how mysterious life was. If he hadn't decided to leave early that afternoon, he might never have discovered Ethan. If Dorothy hadn't had the courage to bring the boy in secret, he might have grown up in the shelter. But all the pieces had fallen perfectly into place. As if Michael and Jennifer from somewhere had orchestrated everything so their family could find and heal each other. Ethan stopped at the front door and looked back at the garden where he had played so many times. "Grandpa, one day, when I have children, I'll tell them our whole story. I'll tell them how love can heal any hurt, how family is built with dedication, not just blood." "And what else will you tell them?" "That even when we think we've lost everything, God always gives us a second chance. Sometimes it comes disguised as a brave housekeeper and a boy with crutches." Richard smiled, hugging his grandson and Dorothy. His second chance had come in the purest form possible, through the unconditional love of a child and the boundless kindness of a simple woman. That night, before going to sleep, Ethan went to Richard's room, as he still sometimes did. "Grandpa, can I sleep here tonight? Like when I was little?" "Of course, Ethan. Whenever you want." Lying side by side, like in the first months of living together, Ethan made a confession. "Grandpa, sometimes I feel like my parents are still here with us, not in a haunted way, but as if their love had transformed into our family." Richard felt his heart warm with his grandson's words. I feel that too, Ethan. I think love never dies. It just changes form. That's why I never feel like an orphan, because I have you and Grandma Dottie, and because I carry Mom and Dad in my heart. Richard hugged Ethan as he did when he was little and had nightmares. You'll always carry them, Ethan, and one day you'll pass that love on to your children. That's how the cycle continues. And Grandma Dottie, will she be a great grandmother to my children? If it's up to me, yes. Dorothy is part of this family forever. Ethan smiled in the dark. Good night, Grandpa. I love you so much. I love you too, champ. More than you can imagine. As Ethan slept beside him, Richard stayed awake thinking about the incredible journey they had lived. From a lonely and bitter businessman, he had become a fulfilled grandfather and a man at peace with himself. Dorothy had been the bridge between the painful past and the hopeful future. Without her, none of that would have been possible. Ethan had been the gift that Michael left for him, the chance to be the father he hadn't been, the grandfather he never thought he would be. And together the three had proven that family isn't defined just by genes, but by choice, dedication, and unconditional love. The next day, Richard woke up early and went to the kitchen, where Dorothy was already preparing breakfast. Good morning, Dorothy. Did you sleep well? I always sleep well when I know my boys are safe at home. Richard smiled at being included in Dorothy's category of boy. At 58, he still received maternal affection from that special woman. Dorothy, I've never said this formally, but I want you to know, you are the best thing that happened to our family. Richard, you've told me that in many ways over the years, but I want to make it clear again. You saved Ethan when he needed it most. You saved me from bitterness, and you saved the memory of Michael and Jennifer, giving their son the love they couldn't give. Dorothy wiped her hands on her apron and hugged Richard. We saved each other. That's what families do. Ethan appeared in the kitchen, still sleepy. Good morning, family. What's this serious talk so early? We're talking about how lucky we are to have found each other, Richard explained. It's true. Imagine if Grandma Dottie hadn't had the courage to bring me here, or if you hadn't left early that day. I think, said Dorothy, pouring coffee, that everything happened at the right time, as if it were destiny. Destiny or not, Ethan commented, grabbing a warm roll. The important thing is that we're together now. Richard looked at his improvised family and felt deep gratitude. He had everything that really mattered: love, companionship, purpose. That morning, Ethan presented his new housing project to government representatives. Richard was in the audience, proud, watching his grandson present innovative solutions for families in need. Gentlemen, Ethan concluded his presentation, I believe decent housing is a basic right. My goal is to create not just houses, but homes where families can grow and prosper. The presentation was a success. Several states showed interest in implementing Ethan's projects. On the way home, Richard commented, Ethan, you were brilliant today. Your father would be very proud. And my mother too. She always said we should use our talents to help others. How do you remember her? Through the stories you tell me, the photos we have, and especially through the love you give me. It's as if she never completely left. Richard realized he had managed to keep the memory of Ethan's parents alive in a healthy way. The boy grew up knowing and admiring Michael and Jennifer, without becoming bitter over the loss. That evening, Dorothy prepared Ethan's favorite dish to celebrate the success of the presentation. It was a simple recipe, but full of affection. Grandma Dottie, when I lived in the shelter, I dreamed of having someone who would cook for me with love. Now I have that every day. And you'll have it forever, my love. As long as these hands can manage, I'll cook for you. And when your hands can't manage anymore, I'll cook for you, Ethan promised. Richard watched these interactions with emotion. Ethan had learned from a young age the value of reciprocity in family love. After dinner, they went out to the garden, as was tradition for special moments, there where everything had begun 12 years earlier. Grandpa, Ethan asked, do you regret anything in our story? Richard thought about the question seriously. I regret not being a better father to Michael, not accepting Jennifer, missing his early years, but I don't regret anything that happened after I found you. You know what I think? What? I think everything that happened before was necessary for us to get here. If you hadn't fought with Dad, maybe I would have grown up rich, but without appreciating the simple things. If Grandma Dottie hadn't worked here, she never would have found me at the shelter. Dorothy agreed. Ethan is right. Sometimes life's paths seem strange, but they lead us exactly where we need to be. So, Richard concluded, our story is perfect the way it happened. With all the pain, all the joy, all the mistakes and successes. Ethan stood up and hugged his grandfather and Dorothy at the same time. We're the most special family in the world. And you know why? Why? They asked together. Because we chose to love each other. It wasn't an obligation, it was a choice, and that makes all the difference. As the sun set once more in the garden where it all began, the three stood there, embraced, knowing they had built something greater than any one of them could have imagined alone. Richard, who was once just a successful businessman, was now a fulfilled grandfather, a mentor, living proof that it's never too late to start over. Dorothy, who started as a housekeeper, had become the heart of a family, the living proof that love knows no social boundaries. And Ethan, who could have been lost in the system, had become a man of integrity, talent, and love, honoring his parents' memory and building a bright future. Together they proved that family is so much more than blood. It's choice, dedication, forgiveness, second chances, and unconditional love. And there, in that garden that held so many memories, they continued writing their love story, a story that began with an unexpected discovery and became the greatest blessing of their lives. End of story. And now we want to know your opinion. What did you think of Richard's transformation? Do you believe people can really change when they find true love? Did Dorothy's story touch you? Tell us in the comments which part moved your heart the most and where you're watching from. Leave your like if the story moved you, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more touching stories like this one.